Welcome, Tim. So this is the Rosignol 2021 DIN setting chart, and I just want to run through the way it works. So I'll use myself as an example. I'm around about 5'11" and a bit, 182 centimeters. I'm also probably about 180 kilos, so I sit into this category. I'm an L. But what would happen if we had somebody that was 6'5" but was 175? Where you've got a divergence between their height and weight in terms of categories, always take the most conservative. So the most conservative is going back. So if they were 6'5" and 175, then we'd make them an L, which is the more conservative option. So just going back to my example, the next factor that we need to look at is skier type. So we have three skier types. We have a type 1, which is pretty much a beginner. Type 2 is sort of intermediate/advanced, and a type 3 who's an expert. So type 2 people who's sort of, intermediate to advanced, they get to move down one skier code. So they'll move from an L to an M, which will make their DIN settings overall higher. So the better the skier, the higher the DIN. If they're a type 3 skier, which is more of an expert skier, they get to move down 2 settings. So for instance, for me, I was an L, so I'm an expert skier. I go down to an N. So I go down to an N. So the next factor you need to consider is the age. If the person is over 50, which sadly I am, then you have to move them back one setting. So then I'll go from an N to an M for Mary. I'll go from an N for Nancy back to an M for Mary. So I'm sitting right on this M category at the moment. Then the last important factor that we need to look at is the ski boot length in millimeters. This is not the Mondo size, it's the actual measurement of the ski boot length in millimeters that's shown on the instep of the boot, sometimes on the bottom, but mostly on the instep. So I'm an M, keep that in mind. My ski boot length in millimeters is 338. So that means I'm in this 7. So I go down this 7 till I get to my M, 7 and M, and that gives me a DIN setting of 6.5. So that's where I'd be sitting. So the important point to note there, as you can see, is the larger people's boots, the lower their DIN setting. The larger people's boots, the lower their DIN setting. So just to go over that again, in summary, you need to start with their height and weight. If there's a difference, choose the more conservative option, then move to skier type. Normally for cat skiing, that will move you down at least 1 and probably 2 if they're experts. Then think about their age. If they're over 50, they have to go back 1. If they're over 50, they have to go back 1. And then you look at the ski boot length. If they're 338 like me, there'll be a 6.5. But let's say they had a boot size of 300 mils, that would mean they would be at an 8 setting, which is fine. So what you want to do is, I'll send this out as a sort of PDF or a JPEG. What you want to do is just take a picture of this sheet